Hi, welcome. I'm Joyce Danger, and this is my friend Carolyn Thompson, and we're going to talk about our emotions and how that affects our Mary Kay business. And I'd like to say that emotions aren't a part of things, but as women, it kind of goes with the territory, doesn't it?
It does. We
And
are emotional creatures.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's part of it. And on our last little video thing, we got cut off before we got to the next thing we wanted to talk about, which is guilt. And sometimes we feel guilty if we do, and we feel guilty if we don't. And sometimes the people who are making us feel guilty are the people who are the ones who are going to benefit from the choice that we're making to work our business. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about how do you handle that?
Well, I think with husbands, one of the things that I think is a good idea when you're new is to sit down and talk about your dreams. What kind of life do you want? Where do you see that Mary Kay could lead you as a couple? Um, where would he benefit from your success? I think if our spouses and our significant others can buy into our success, they're going to be supportive. The other thing is, I think they want to see results quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have a window of opportunity to show them that we can make money in Mary Kay. I think that's a real important obligation on our part. So once they see that money coming in, I always remember Marilyn Willie's story of how she had her husband stamp the back of her checks for deposit. And he could see what she was making. Sometimes it's the best kept secret in the world as to what we are making as Mary Kay Beauty Consultants. And I think the guys need to know.
I agree with that. Even if you're wanting to put some money back into some product, maybe you want to have some inventory, I think he can see if the money is coming in, he's not going to have so much trouble with the whole concept of how the business is run if he sees what's going on. But if he sees that we're just out there, he has no idea what's going on. I mean, any more than we would if our husbands were leaving, a couple times a week to go out and do whatever that they said was a job, and we didn't see anything happening as a result of it. I might lose patience too.
I think so. And if he knows that perhaps you're working for something that's going to benefit him, and again, we talked about breaking down goals, but is there some way that maybe an immediate goal would be something that he could benefit from? Maybe you're working for, we're sitting out by the lovely lake, a boat, or something that is a family goal that your Mary Kay money can buy. That will really help him to see in the short term
Mm-hmm.
that you are making money. And I think the guilt will stop because he's a believer that you need to get out the door and get to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know one of my directors, Natalie Murphy, gives her husband, she'll just give him $20 when she comes home from a party, and just gives him $20 that he can do with whatever he wants, and there's no accountability that he has to use it for anything. And so just knowing that he can get that little perk is a helps to get him on board with things too, so that is helpful. And there's other ideas with children too that they sometimes don't understand. If you try to explain the long term, we talk about short term sacrifice for long term gain, but for our kids sometimes they're too little to really understand what that looks like. So there's little ideas that people have done with their children. I know you were talking about one a little bit earlier. Do you want to share what that was?
I love this one where your children can pick out something that they would like, and every time that you go out the door to a success meeting or that you go out to do a facial or a party, you're going to put $1 in their envelope that goes to buying whatever it is they want to buy. And when they have enough money in their envelope, they get to go out and buy what they want. And this works for husbands too. If he wants, I don't know, if he's a hunter and he wants a new gun or bow and arrow or something, he puts a picture on the outside of the envelope and he gets paid too every time you go out the door. And this kind of attitude changes everything because, instead of a child going, Mom, are you going again? They're going to, get that $1 when you come home, and it's, Mom, do you have a party this week? And when we can get our family on board, that
Mm-hmm.
makes our life a lot simpler because, as you mentioned, Joyce, these are the people that are going to benefit. I thought of a quick story on husbands, and this happened to one of our unit members several years ago, and this is Pam Jones. And her husband Al said, he usually met her halfway in when she was coming into her success meeting. She had a couple-hour drive to get to the success meeting, and he'd meet her, and then he'd take the kids the rest of the way, and then she'd come on into the city. And he said, gee, I don't know if I can keep doing this, Pam, because my tires on my pickup are really bad. And she said, well, Al, how much does a set of tires cost? And he said something about $700 at that time. And she said, I'll tell you what, you're so good at meeting me and taking care of the kids, you know, when I have my meetings, that I'll buy those from my Mary Kay money. And she wrote him out a check that night from her Mary Kay account. Now, Al Jones became an instant believer. Not that he was a complainer about her going to meetings, because he believed in the opportunity, but I'll tell you what, he was the biggest booster there was, because she put the money where her mouth was, and she paid and got those tires.
Makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Another thing that happens sometimes is that we compare ourselves to other people, and that sometimes can do awful things to our emotions. And I know I've had to learn that when I compare myself, I tend to compare what I'm feeling on the inside of me to what I see on the outside of you. And when I do that, I always lose. And so I don't know if you ever struggle, but how do you make sure that, what is your best ideas as far as not comparing yourself, or how to avoid that trap?
That's a tough one, and it is human nature, really, to want to do that. And somebody once said that we compare our worst with somebody's best. And so we're not on an even playing field to begin with. So I think the thing is that we have to dig deep and decide what it is you want your life to be like, and paint that picture big enough so that your success doesn't have to compare to anybody else's. Your success is totally where you're going. And that really helps a lot. And the other thing is, I think we have to know that everybody has different gifts. And I'm not going to compare to Joyce in so many ways. So what I love to do is to take your talents and use them, that I can learn from them, and share your talents with my people, because you know, it's kind of like Mary Kay used to say, we're an angel, we each have one wing. And when we link together, we can fly. So, and actually embracing other people's successes and gifts, because each one of us has something to give as well. And maybe we don't always know what it is, but through our little baby steps of success, that comes out. And you begin to realize that you do have a gift with this. It's usually something that feels kind of easy for you, and you realize, maybe people compliment you on it, and you realize, oh, I think this is one of my gifts. And that really means a lot when you can start that self-discovery journey.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the angel one.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah. Another thing we struggle with sometimes is disappointment, and I know that we all have people who don't do what they say they're going to do, or cancellations, that sort of thing. And how do you manage with getting over that, you know, that feeling of, you know, when we're let down?
Well, there's a couple of different ways I can address that. One is I build in rewards, so that when something is going right, you know, there's a reward. Say at the end of the week, I might buy myself flowers, or go to a movie, or do something with my family. The other thing is, when people disappoint you, just remember that numbers don't. And so we're going to run into people who don't do what they say they're going to do. We're going to run into people who say no to us. But we keep on going. As Mary Kay would, we keep on saying, who's next? Who's next? Who wants what I have to offer? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a key.
Yeah, there's enough people out there that some don't, and sometimes there's a reason for that, and they'll come back at a later time. I know that, thank goodness, someone was patient with me, because it was from the time she first started talking to me about Mary Kay, the business part, and until I decided to become a consultant, it was 1.5 years. And I'm glad that she was pleasantly persistent, so she did not hound me or call me every week or anything like that, but she did invite me to things from time to time. And I knew, I think, that someday I was going to do this, but I just wasn't ready yet. And so be patient and know that when it's her time, if you are warm to her, kind to her, and don't just give up on her. And so my recruiter, she didn't give up on me, but she did just sweetly ask me again.
knowing that there may be another side to the story. If somebody
Mm-hmm.
says no to you or disappoints you, maybe something is going on in her life. We don't always know. And I think we have to remember there are always the two sides. And if we're kind to that person, she'll remember it. And
Yeah.
if that makes a difference, she would come back.
Yeah. And she took me back to the product each time, too. So she didn't come back and talk about the business right away. She took me back to, she invited me to something and we talked about the product. And then as we were talking about the product, then, you know how ladies talk and you're just chatting, what's going on with your life and what's going on with your life. And then, one thing leads to another. And so we need to be open to talking about things like that.
Yes.
So, good. Sometimes we get stuck on what we feel like doing. I don't know if you ever
Ooh, yes.
do that, but in Mary Kay, how do you get past, like do you ever get up and just don't feel like doing your Mary Kay that day?
A lot of times, especially the older we get.
So then what do you do?
I think we develop habits early on that pay off for the rest of our life. And one of the things that I did establish was that I would work at a certain time. I would be dressed and working. And even though we have a flexible business, I think we still should expect to have working hours, working time. Maybe it's not the same time every day, but that we expect we're going to be working. And that really, we shouldn't have to feel like working or doing what we're going to do next at every time. Just think about when we had real jobs out there working for somebody else. Well, we didn't feel like going into work every day, but we did it anyway. And why should Mary Kay be any different? Because the payoff is so much more. So even though we have a very flexible business, flexibility and sometimes can be our worst enemy, and we have to be very careful how we use it.
Yeah, you don't want to flex yourself right out of a career. And I know sometimes I'll say to myself something like, if I choose to do the thing that I need to do now, then I can choose to do the things that I want to do later. And
Absolutely.
it helps me to kind of put a perspective on things. And so I am knowing that each day, if I would call in sick to a real job, so to speak, then I would call in sick to Mary Kay. But if I've got something scheduled, I would have to be pretty sick before I would tell the lady that I'm not going to do it. Or I just do, I guess, I don't know, maybe I just have that farm work ethic that you just do it because it's your job. And if I want to get that paycheck and I want to have the lifestyle that I want to have, and I like to shop and I like to travel and I like to do the things that I like to do, that's where this provides the income that gives me those choices. And with those choices comes responsibility, and the responsibility is to get up and do the things that I need to do to provide that for my job.
Right. It does take a certain amount of discipline and dedication, and the payoff will come.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's fun. I think that if you're a person who likes people, I love the ladies that I work with. I love my customers. I love the ladies in my unit. So I really do like what I do. So even though it might take discipline to get started, it's kind of like making that first phone call. That sometimes it's tough to make the first one. But once I get the ball rolling, then it's really fun. Or sometimes it's hard to get out the door to go do that makeover. But once you're there, it's really fun.
It is fun. And when you think about it, just about everything in life is that way. I mean, do we want to do dishes? Do we want to exercise? And so we have to do the things that are going to make us better or provide those beautiful rewards that we want in life.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we like the results when the kitchen is clean and when fitting our skinny jeans.
That's right.
All right, thanks for joining us.